So this story that I wrote last week and we published, I think it was Thursday, has gotten so much play. Been getting a lot of phone calls from legislators. A lot of legislators, especially the freshman ones, had no idea that these kind of strings were attached to Medicaid expansion. But I'm going to go into all this. Again, good evening. Hello, hello. So this is the story that we published at Education First Alliance. So it's edfirstnc.org. Please check that out. So Medicaid expansion, and they've been talking about in the Senate and in the some in the House as well. They're talking about expanding it. And there's a few stats that we'll get to in a second, but check this out. Here's some of the costs we're looking at. Now I'm going to explain to you, you're going to wish I didn't, but I'm going to explain to you kind of what these are in a minute. But check out the price tag on some of the surgeries and procedures that are covered not only under Medicaid, but our state health plan. So our state health plan covers about 750,000 employees and their dependents. So that would be teachers, that would be post office workers, people who work at, the General Assembly, for instance, support staff and the like. So not only did those 750,000 people and their dependents have John Q. Public pay for these procedures on their children also, which is our main concern, but Medicaid patients get that as well. So to give you an idea of the size we're talking about, 1 in 4 North Carolinians that you see out there walking around are on Medicaid. And so the plan would be to expand Medicaid to, they say, 150,000 families. You know what they say, right? 150 is really going to be 450, right? And so we see these government spending programs happen all the time where you can only ratchet them up, you can't ratchet them down. So we kind of know what to expect. But let's say this from the outset. It is a moral imperative for North Carolinians to take care of very low-income children. We have a lot of rural areas, and that's just, we have a lot just by virtue of the way the state is geographically. Low-income families, elderly, obviously, those that are disabled. That's what the plan is there for, and it is a moral imperative that we keep it there. But let me ask you this. Let's say that we've got, a disabled person that's 42 with 2 children. Don't you think that they're going to be pretty upset if and when, and they do quite frequently, they get denied services? But these services with a high price tag that are elective, they're not necessary. Don't you think they're going to be angry that they're being edged out by these surgeries on children, adults, or whoever? Of course they will. It's not fair to the people that need Medicaid, and it isn't fair to the taxpayer. A lot of people, in fact, most people, have a moral objection, not only a financial one, to paying for child sex changes to be done. To give you an idea of what that entails, let's go over what one of the Medicaid providers here in North Carolina actually deems medical necessary. So it's a medical necessity for youth to have the following treatments. Okay, guys, let me tell you what you're looking at. This is Centene, and this is one of the providers of Medicaid in North Carolina. There's I think 5 providers, and they're probably pretty similar. But this says, look, you are going to cover gender reassignment. It is our clinical policy that this is medically necessary unless there is a rule in a particular state, like I believe there is in Florida, that you may not use Medicaid to pay for it. In North Carolina, we're one of, 9 or 10 states that says, hey, we're not going to weigh in on this, right? So there is no rule that you can or can't, which means what? You can. All right. So it says in order to have these services, gender dysphoria criteria, okay, a strong desire to be rid of one's primary, secondary sex characteristics, etc. Let's be clear. Gender identity is it's a identity diffusement issue. In other words, it is a mental issue that can and usually does go away when a person gets older. It's a disturbance in the identity, a strong conviction that one has typical feelings and reactions. Since when have we done surgical procedures on somebody who had strong feelings and reactions? I mean, because that's what they're saying here. They're not saying that you have pain in your hip and look at what the CT scan reflects. This is what we're doing. Okay, so you'll see, all right, adolescents, you see this capacity to make an informed decision to consent for treatment. I argue they do not. That's why they call it under the age of consent. And they have to be 12 continuous month in a gender role. That could be using pronouns, you guys. Okay, so here we go. This E right here, 12 continuous months of cross-sex hormones therapy of desired gender. Now that might be a puberty blocker in concert with testosterone. And by the way, both of them are dangerous as hell. 12 months of that, you will be sterilized. So that's before you can get the surgery. And a letter from your therapist, well, that ain't too hard. Okay, wait do you see what I show you next? Okay, so here are the surgeries that are medically necessary to treat feelings, to treat an identity disturbance. Right here you go. Okay, removing penis and testicles, giving a hysterectomy to a perfectly normal and healthy 12-year-old. Don't say it's not happening and that this is hyperbole. That's not true. It actually is happening. And all of these things, I could tell you what they are, but it's close to the dinner hour. Okay. Man, they don't give a facelift. They don't give liposuction, any of that. So here's the things that they're not going to do. But you get the point. This is what Medicaid is already paying for, and they want to expand it. What you just saw is bad enough. It ought to make you mad. It definitely made me mad. And again, we out here at John Q. Public, we're not alone. I've heard from 4 or 5 senators and a couple of House reps that they are going to put a stop to this. Can't have this in Medicaid. Really can't have it at all as a civil society. But just to make you a little bit angrier tonight, I'm going to tell you that Medicaid is given to all children inside of our schools who need it. And quite a many of our children in public schools are on free or reduced lunch. They are a target. So up until a few years ago, Medicaid services would understandably be used in the school for things like, the hearing impaired or cerebral palsy, profoundly disabled. Those services, schools could bill for those, and that's a good thing. Now, schools, every PSU now can bill Medicaid for behavioral services, which include gender identity. So now every school can bill for that. That's why you are seeing, and by the way, just to remind you, according to the general statutes here in North Carolina, the age of consent is 0. That's what the statute says. That means that a child can be, I'm just throwing this out there, 7 years old and consent to their own treatment without parental knowledge or permission. California, that age is 12. North Carolina, the age is 0. It's another law that has to change. This is insanity. So that means that all of these surveys that are being given out, if Susie or Johnny answers the wrong questions or what have you, they might be scheduled for behavior intervention or a one-on-one with a therapist, either in the school or via Zoom. because they're doing telehealth now with this. And just did a story the week before last that told you about the thinking and the wokeness and the, quite frankly, grooming that's going on with our school psychologists, or at least the body governing our school psychologists, and the school social workers. Let's review that again. So the DPI is hiring an army of social workers and psychologists to go into schools. And, the theory is they're going to help them, with anxiety, behavioral modification, things we would expect, but not so much. So the leading organization for school social workers promotes the biggest crock. I'm telling you guys, CRT all the way. One seminar they had last week behind closed doors, get this: white supremacy and the roots of anti-Blackness among Latino, Asian Americans, Pacific Islander communities. You're hearing this right. So it's divide, 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 divide. Now it's not even whites against Black and brown people. It's Black and brown people against Black and brown people. It's insane. It is absolutely insane. So they're training social workers on how to be anti-racist. They're also doing this gender crap. And they say, we are committed to social justice for all and ending racism. Ending racism is a noble cause. We should all be worried about that, right? Discrimination and prejudice directed at any group is damaging all of the stuff. We agree. Having said that, it appears that they are discriminating, when we go back up here, right, against all Asians, Hispanics, etc. They're doing just the opposite of what they purport to want to do. Now, they are seeking $100 million for CRT promoting social workers. That's not good. And I just published this the other day. School psychologists focus on white privilege and student sexuality. So we've got the social workers on one end, school psychologists on the other. Again, edfirstnc.org. You're going to find both of these stories here. And yeah, they're teaching this stuff about being woke and anti-transphobic and stuff like that in these groups. Social justice matters. Again, this has nothing whatsoever to do with helping our children with the very real problems of adjusting to school craziness. This is actually, what you're looking at is a presentation from the North Carolina School Psychology Association. Look at what they're doing. Whiteness as property. So are they punishing our white students? This is insane. On their website, on the national website for this group, privileged advantage in societal relationships benefits the holder of privilege who may receive different special knowledge, higher comfort level. And this is crazy. Privilege not visible to the holder. It's merely there. Others have a lack thereof. And so we all thought that we did not teach that just because of color of your skin that you're inferior, but North Carolina school psychologist, not so much. So again, do you trust these psychologists who are armed and ready to diagnose clearly behind your back children with gender dysphoria? Look at this. When in doubt, remember the client is our student. No, sir. No, ma'am. The parent is in charge here. Student disclosures. If family doesn't know, don't disclose to the family directly. Okay, so if kid wants to change their gender, or if they're being groomed to change their gender, a couple lawsuits about that now going on. Can't tell parents. Remember, age of consent is 0 in these schools. Medicaid, we don't know, but it's certainly conceivable that these hormone blockers may be given out at school. Maybe they are already. We don't know. Maybe down the road. We don't know. But the fact we don't know is a problem. When in doubt, the student is a client. This is North Carolina School Psychology Association. Okay. So now we see. Now we understand the incredible risk that we have here. We've got Medicaid already. So it's already here, right? So this is already going on. Then you've got Medicaid expansion, which is pretty ambiguous. I mean, DHHS says it's going to be 200,000 families. We don't know, right? So you've got a practice that needs to be stopped, period. And then you've got it inside the schools, and then you're going to have it expanded. Cannot happen, guys. Cannot happen. Now, there's a bill called the Youth Protection Act. It was put up about, I think, 2 years ago. Ralph Hayes, Norm Sanderson, and Warren Daniel introduced that in the Senate. It went nowhere. It has to be reintroduced. We have to say, look, at the minimum, taxpayer funds may not go to fund any of this surgery, period. We don't need to be doing it, period. If we have to fight, we have to fight. Look, I know our legislators are very concerned about going up against this radical left mob. They're going to have to bite the bullet, and we, the John Q. public, we're going to have to support them like we never have. We cannot expect our legislators to do all the work, take all the risk, and then we're sitting out here just criticizing. We have to back them up, guys. So we've got to be ready for that. But Youth Protection Act, it has to pass in some iteration, okay? So I want you to call your House rep, call your senator, and then let them know what you're concerned about, and importantly, what you are willing to do to help support them. They need your support, okay? We're asking something from them. We're going to need to give something back. So tell them how you are prepared to support them. Bring them into their church, into your church, to talk about this. But they need your support. We need to make this happen in this legislative session. You see the urgency. You saw it with your own eyes. Oh, one more thing I want to show you. And I want to show you so you have a visual. Let's take a look at what Medicaid pays for children. So, okay, this shouldn't be done, period, point blank at all. But the fact that taxpayers are paying for this, when our intention is to pay for people that really need it. You've got a 60-year-old person that needs a hip replacement. They're disabled, etc. They need those services. We do not need to be doing this. It is absolutely purely evil. We know science is good up into a point, right? Science is only as good as the men and women who are behind that science. We've got some pretty demented, evil people here, in case you haven't realized it, who are taking over sectors like healthcare. It's really concerning. But the point is this: we need to call our legislators. Let's also tell them how we're going to work for them. Share this video. Share this video with everyone you know, and then get your legislator also to watch this, okay, or to read our story. Again, edfirstnc.org. Check it out. Share this.